This piece of evidence is a finger mark that hasn't been treated. If I pick it up, hopefully what you'll be able to see is that at certain kind of points, you'll be able to see the reflection of some finger marks on the surface. The general rule that people follow when treating and developing marks is that if a finger mark is visible, it needs to be photographed. Now with something like this, the fingerprint is actually a latent, so it's not got great contrast and it's over a white background. The technique we're going to use in this case is reflected UV. So we're exploiting the different ways that UV light interacts with the surface compared to the way that visible light interacts with the surface to make the fingerprint visible. So I'm going to put my camera into live mode and turn on the 82S UV. I'm going to direct it towards the surface and bring the camera down so that the image starts to come into focus. Now, what we can see here is the finger mark is scattering the UV light differently to the way that it is scattering visible light, which makes it much more obvious to see now that we're both illuminating and viewing in the UV part of the spectrum. We're able to do this by using a quartz glass lens on the DCS and a UV bandpass filter to only allow the transmission of UV light. Because, as we can see, that visibly, what we're seeing on the surface looks quite different to what the DCS camera is seeing. What we're seeing is the fluorescence, as our eyes aren't sensitive to UV light, and what the camera sees is the way that the UV interacts with the surface and the way that the UV is reflected and scattered. So the next thing I'm going to do is sort of move it about and play about with the angle and the direction of illumination, and then capture a preview into the software. Just to check the focus and exposure, because I've had to focus in live view mode rather than down the optics of the camera. So I'm going to give the image a quick check in grayscale and inverted to check that I'm happy with how it looks, and I am. And then I'm going to select the correct lens, is with a 12mm extension tube and a focus value of 0.264. Then I can capture that evidence into the software, and what this means is I now have a record of how this finger mark looked prior to treatment. This means that if the finger mark is damaged or lost throughout treatment, we still have a record of how it looked prior to treatment. The safest way to record your finger marks is to do it sequentially between each stage of treatment.